Welcome to the deep dive. The place where we kind of cut through all that clutter and bring you those really potent insights. I think you're here because you want to get smarter, faster, and, not drown in an ocean of information. And today we're diving deep right into this fascinating collection called 92 Little Tricks for Big Success in Relationships. And our mission is to really extract those actionable techniques that can honestly shift the needle, in how you connect with people and achieve those goals you have.
What I find so engaging about this particular material is how grounded it is. It's not just throwing out vague advice like just be confident or something like that. Instead, it offers these very specific, very named techniques that come directly from observing high achievers. And we're talking diverse fields here, like, sales wizards, those captivating speakers we all know, even people who just seem to, effortlessly make those connections.
Right. Like it's almost like they have a secret formula or something.
Exactly. And the author, they've really taken the time to synthesize observations from like communication seminars and even, picked up insights from those Fortune 500 CEO types. It's really impressive.
Totally. And they kick things off with something that's incredibly powerful, and that is your nonverbal communication. Believe it or not, over 80%, like a huge chunk of that first impression, it hinges on how you look and move.
Before you even say a word.
Seriously, before a single word comes out, the author even talks about their experiences, being in countries where they didn't speak a lick of the language, but they could still pick up on a person's whole vibe, their confidence, whether they were approachable, even like their status, just by watching how they moved.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How much we communicate without even realizing it.
Absolutely. So in these 92 tricks, the first area we're going to tackle is all about how to look like a somebody.
And all starts with something we often take for granted, something fundamental. Posture.
Posture.
Really? Oh, absolutely. The author even calls it a success barometer. And if you think about it, it makes total sense. Someone who's all slumped over versus someone standing tall. I mean, they're projecting totally different messages.
That's true, actually. Never thought about it like that.
Right. And the psychology behind it is, our physical presence often mirrors our internal state and others.
Yeah.
They pick up on that. They interpret that subconsciously.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. There's this technique in the book called hang by your teeth.
Oh, I love this one.
Right. So imagine you're walking through a doorway, right? And just above your head, there's this circus performer's iron jaw bit.
Like one of those strongman acts.
Yeah, exactly. And picture yourself biting down on it. What happens?
Well, your head lifts, of course.
Right. Your shoulders naturally pull back, and you even get this subtle smile just by doing that. The idea is that this physical alignment, it instantly makes you look confident, like you're in control.
It's almost like tricking your body into feeling confident, which then projects outward.
It's a fascinating idea, and it really makes you realize how tuned in we are to those little social signals, Like the author talks about how attorneys, when they're picking jury's voir dire, they're watching everything.
Every little thing.
Postures, are they leaning forward even if their palms are open or if they've got those fists clenched?
Wow. I never realized.
Right. Crazy. But those nonverbal cues, we read them subconsciously as indicators of whether someone's open to our ideas or not.
Makes you wonder if you've been giving off the wrong signals this whole time.
I know, right? And the why behind all this, it goes way back, to our evolutionary biology. We're wired to assess threats and, trustworthiness based on these tiny signals.
Makes sense when you think about it in those terms.
And get this, it gets even more interesting. Remember the Chicago 7 trial?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Well, the defense attorney actually officially objected to the judge's posture. Can you believe that?
No way. What was the judge doing?
So he was leaning forward when the prosecution was making their case and then leaning back during the defense's arguments. And the attorney was like, hey, this is sending a subliminal message of bias to the jury.
Wow, that's next level reading of body language.
Right. It really shows you how much power those little postural adjustments have. So the takeaway here is your posture isn't just about how you feel, it's a message you're sending, whether you realize it or not.
Loud and clear.
Yeah.
So we've tackled posture. What's next on the nonverbal hit list?
Well, next up is another nonverbal powerhouse, and that's the smile.
The smile. Seems simple enough.
But here's the thing. The author makes a big distinction between that, quick, almost automatic grin we all do, and what they call the flooding smile.
The flooding smile, I like the sound of that.
Right. And this is the kind of smile you see from people who are seen as like super credible and have that strong integrity vibe.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this flooding smile.
Well, it's not instant. That's the thing. There's a tiny delay, like a beat or two, before it fully blossoms and like spreads across their whole face.
Interesting. So it's not just plastered on.
Exactly. The author actually became like a dedicated smile watcher. They observed politicians, clergy members, those corporate leader types, people we tend to associate with being trustworthy.
I see. The people we're supposed to trust, at least.
And their research showed that this delayed smile, it just felt more real, like it had more impact.
Because it's not just a reflex, right? It's like a considered response.
Exactly. And think about those smiles you sometimes get, the ones that are instant and almost feel, I don't know, fake.
Like they've been practicing in the mirror.
Yeah. The author even gives examples of greetings that, sound friendly on the surface, but there's no real warmth behind them.
It's all an act.
But here's the other thing. You gotta be careful not to go too far the other way either.
How do you mean?
Well, there's this example of Strogman. This guy basically had the same unchanging smile for everyone he met, and it came across as super inauthentic.
Creepy even.
Yeah, a little bit. So the takeaway is tailor your smile, make it genuine for each person, and maybe even give a slightly warmer one to the person you really want to connect with in a group.
I like that. So the smile's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Definitely not. And the
Yeah.
impact it has, it's huge. There was this study, and it showed that a woman was approached 60% of the time when she smiled, but only 20% when she didn't.
That's a massive difference.
It really shows you how much of an invitation a genuine smile can be.
So we've covered posture and smiles. What other nonverbal cues do we need to be aware of?
Well, building on facial expressions, we move to the eyes.
The eyes.
Oh, yeah, the author calls them personal grenades.
Personal grenades. Okay, that's a strong image.
It is, right. But when you think about it, our eyes have the power to, detonate emotions in others.
I see what you mean. So it's not just about making eye contact.
Right. It's about using specific techniques to, really connect with someone. And the first one we're going to look at is called sticky eyes.
Sticky eyes. I'm all ears.
So this isn't about, staring someone down. Okay. It's more about holding that eye contact for just an extra second after you finish speaking before you look away.
Just a little longer than usual.
Exactly. And there's this great anecdote about a salesman, this guy named Sammy. He was, initially he came across as kind of arrogant, but he started consciously doing this sticky eyes thing, even with waiters.
Wait, so just by holding their gaze for a second longer?
Yep. And he was suddenly perceived as so much more sensitive and caring. And get this, they started getting way better service too.
That's wild. So it's like a subtle way of saying, hey, I see you. I'm really listening.
Exactly. And it's such a small adjustment, but it has a big impact.
Amazing. Okay, what's the next eye technique?
Okay, this next one's called watch the eyes, and it's a little more subliminal.
Watch the eyes. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah. So you basically count how many times someone blinks while you're talking to them.
Wait, really? Like secretly count their blinks?
Yep, without them knowing, of course. And the crazy thing is, people who had someone doing this blink counting on them, they reported feeling way more respect for that person and even a stronger sense of fondness,
Yeah. No way. I wonder why that is. Maybe because it makes them feel like they're the center of attention.
Could be. It's like that extra focus. Even if it's subconscious, it translates to, hey, I'm really interested in what you're saying.
Makes sense.
And, even the author, they share a story about how they felt so inspired by someone at a seminar who just held this unwavering eye contact the entire time.
Intense.
It was. It made them feel like every word they said was being truly heard, But there's a caveat.
Oh.
Yeah, this kind of intense eye contact, it can backfire, especially if the other person's feeling a bit, suspicious or insecure.
Right, so read the room, basically.
Exactly. You got to be aware and adjust based on the person you're interacting with.
So we've covered the silent language of nonverbal cues. Now it's time to move on to the spoken word.
Right. You got it. And the author points out something really interesting here. They say that your tongue is a welcome mat.
A welcome mat.
Yeah, and it can either, invite people in or push them away.
So it's about how we use our words.
Exactly. And, they acknowledge that a lot of us, especially intelligent folks like you and me, might not be the biggest fans of small talk.
Oh, tell me about it. Small talk can be so painful sometimes.
Right. But here's the thing that I found really comforting. Even people like Public Casals, the cellist, and Neil Diamond.
Wait, Neil Diamond gets nervous about small talk.
Yep. They've both admitted to feeling that social stage fright, when they have to make small talk.
Well, that makes me feel a little better about my own awkwardness.
Right. You're in good company. So the first verbal technique we encounter is called make a mood match.
Make a mood match. What's that all about?
It's about being, well, aware of the other person's energy and matching it. Like, if they seem super energetic or maybe kind of subdued, even a little stressed, you adjust your own tone and energy to theirs before you even start talking.
So you're meeting them where they are emotionally. I like that.
Right. And the author gives this great contrasting example, with these Mensa members in an elevator.
To Mensa,
Yeah.
like the high IQ society.
Yep, those folks. So the author is feeling pretty tired, right? And the other people in the elevator, they just launched into this like super technical explanation of the elevator's mechanics.
Without even acknowledging like the slow elevator, the mood.
Exactly. They completely missed the chance to connect on a human level because they didn't even try to match the mood.
So it's about creating that emotional connection first before jumping into all the intellectual stuff.
Exactly. Empathy first, then engagement, and then there's this technique called prosaic with passion.
Prosaic with passion. Okay, that sounds interesting.
It is, and it's great news for those of us who sometimes stress about coming up with, some brilliant opening line.
Oh, yeah. The pressure to be witty right off the bat can be a lot.
Right. But here's the thing. Your initial words, they don't need to be groundbreaking. The author says like 80% of that initial impression is about the mood you've already set, your positive demeanor, and how passionately you deliver even those ordinary words.
So it's not about what you say, it's how you say it.
Pretty much. As long as it's not, negative or rude, almost anything can be a starting point for building that connection.
I like that. It takes the pressure off. Speaking of connecting, there's this story about Senator Hayakawa, the linguist, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
He got invited to dinner by these people who were initially very suspicious of him.
Suspicious of a senator.
Yeah, I guess they weren't really into politicians. But it wasn't some brilliant remark that won them over. It was his really, ordinary small talk. It put them at ease, and that's how they connected.
So being relatable sometimes trumps trying to be brilliant.
Exactly. Now, what if you want to actively create opportunities for conversations to start?
Good question. That's where the always wear a what's it technique comes in.
Always wear a what's it.
Ah.
Okay, you've got to explain that one.
So it basically means having something unusual or interesting on you, something that's a natural conversation starter.
Like what?
It could be anything, like unique Greek worry beads or a really cool golf club lapel pin. The key is to make sure it's visible, Give people something to ask about.
That's actually a really clever idea. It takes the pressure off having to come up with an opening line.
Exactly. And then there's eavesdropping for those times when you want to join a conversation that's already happening.
Eavesdrop in. Isn't that a bit, intrusive?
Not if you do it right. It's about listening for a keyword or two that you can use as a way to join in naturally and politely.
Okay, give me an example.
So say you overhear a group talking about a trip to Bermuda. You could be like, excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear you talking about Bermuda. I'm actually planning a trip there myself. Any recommendation?
So you're not just barging in, you're finding common ground.
Exactly.
Okay, so you started a conversation. How do you keep it going and make it engaging?
Well, the first tip is never the naked city.
What does that even mean?
So, when someone asks, where are you from? Don't just give them the one-word answer. Spice it up a little.
Add some flavor.
Right. Like instead of just saying Chicago, you could mention that fun fact that it has more pizza places than any other city in the U.S. Or talk about how the city was originally named Mud City.
Okay, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that about Chicago. But what about those standard questions like, what do you do?
That one. Well, the advice here is don't just give your job title, like accountant or teacher. Instead, develop what they call a nutshell resume or a benefit statement. Focus on how your work helps others.
Benefit statement. I like that.
Me too. For example, a real estate agent could say they help people find their dream homes. Or a financial planner could say they help people achieve financial freedom. It makes it more relatable and memorable,
It's like you're selling the impact, not just the job title. Makes sense.
Exactly. And you know what else? You can be a sleuth on their slips of the tongue.
Okay, that one sounds a little creepy. Like, what are we sleuthing for?
Nothing creepy, I promise. It's about paying attention to those little word choices people make, you know? Those unintentional slips can actually tell you a lot about what they're really interested in or concerned about.
Even if they don't say it directly?
Yep. Like imagine someone in a nursing home saying they used to walk a lot. That's a clue that maybe they're reminiscing about their past or, wishing they were more mobile now.
Ah, I see. You're using their words to uncover deeper meaning and spark a conversation.
You got it. And here's a quick trick. If you ever find yourself struggling to keep a conversation going, it's called parroting.
Parroting? Does
Yeah.
that mean repeating what they say?
Kind of. You repeat the last 2 or 3 words of their sentence, but in a sympathetic, questioning tone. It keeps the conversation flowing without you having to come up with something new to say right away.
Clever. Like if someone says, it was a really long day, you'd say, a long day.
Exactly. And then they'll probably elaborate.
Smart. It takes the pressure off.
And if someone's telling a great story, you can use the encore technique.
Encore, like asking them to tell it again.
Yep. Encourage them to share it with a larger group. It makes them feel good and it keeps the good vibes going. But be careful with confessing all.
Oh, what's the danger in confessing?
Well, sharing too much personal stuff too soon, especially in a new relationship, it can actually make people uncomfortable or even suspicious instead of building that intimacy you're hoping for.
Makes sense. Don't overshare right out of the gate.
Exactly. And you know what? It's always good to be conversationally prepared. The author actually suggests listening to a newscast before social events.
So you're up to date on current events.
Yep, it gives you those ready-made conversation starters no matter who you're talking to.
Good tip. It's like having a mental cheat sheet.
Now, let's talk about how to sound intelligent, even a bit VIP-like. And it starts with that "what do you do?" question again.
But we already talked about that.
We did, but this time it's about being strategic. Before you answer, think about who's asking. What might they be interested in hearing about your work? Could they be a potential client or a valuable connection?
So tailor your nutshell resume to the person you're talking to.
Exactly. And then there's the vocabulary victorious.
The vocabulary victorious.
Okay, you're losing me a bit. Does this mean using big words to impress people?
It's not about showing off. It's about using rich and evocative words. Think splendid, superb, extraordinary. Words like that.
Okay, but isn't that a bit pretentious?
Not if you do it naturally. The key is to practice using those words so they become part of your regular vocabulary, like breaking in a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Fake it till you make it. Right. And instead of saying, "I like your suit," try this. "You look fantastic in that suit."
So focus the compliment on the person.
Exactly. It makes it way more impactful and personal.
I can see that. What about those overused phrases we all tend to fall back on?
Good point. We're talking cliche calamity. Those tired phrases like "happy as a lark" or "busy as a bee." Try to replace those with something fresher and more visual.
Like what?
Instead of "happy as a lark," try "happy as a lottery winner." Or instead of "busy as a bee," say "busy as a one-armed paper hanger."
Busy as a one-armed paper hanger. Now that's a visual. I'm definitely stealing that one.
Right. It's all about being memorable.
Okay, what if someone just won't let go of a topic? Like even if you've tried to change the subject, what do you do?
That's where the broken record technique comes in.
Broken record. Explain.
You just repeat your original response in the exact same tone of voice, calm and consistent. It's like, nope, not going there.
So you're setting a boundary without being confrontational.
Exactly. There's a story in the book about a woman named Barbara who totally shut down these nosy questions about her divorce at a party just by using the broken record.
I like it. Subtle but effective.
Ah.
Okay, what about when you're talking to like a celebrity or someone super important? Any tips?
Oh, yeah. Remember big shots? Don't slobber.
Meaning?
Don't go overboard with the praise, no gushing. Instead, just express genuine pleasure or maybe share a specific insight you've gained from their work.
So play it cool.
Exactly. And if they've got someone with them, what the author calls a drone, try to include them in the conversation too.
So don't just focus on the big shot.
Right. And it's generally considered bad form to, ask performers to perform or professionals to work for free at social events.
Right, their free time is their free time.
Now, how about becoming an insider in different social circles?
Ooh, that sounds interesting. I'm always up for expanding my horizons.
Well, there's this thing called scramble therapy, and it's all about getting out of your comfort zone.
Scramble therapy. What's that entail?
It's about trying new things, at least once a month, whether it's a new sport, attending a lecture on something you know nothing about, going to a weird art exhibition, anything that exposes you to something different.
I like it. So you're shaking things up.
Exactly. And it helps you pick up the lingo, get a basic understanding of different fields, so you can connect with people who are into those things.
So if I wanted to talk to, like, a bunch of surfers, I should take a surfing lesson.
Exactly. You'll pick up those surfer terms, understand their world a bit better.
Makes sense.
And then there's Bear Their Hot Button. This one's all about figuring out what people are really passionate about, you know? What keeps them up at night.
So, like, their deepest concerns or their biggest excitements.
Exactly. And then asking smart questions about those things.
Okay, but how do you figure out their hot button in the first place?
It could be anything. Like for an independent bookstore owner, it might be the struggle against Amazon, you know? Or for an accountant, it might be those ever-changing tax laws.
Ah, I get it. You're tapping into what really matters to them.
Exactly. And if you really want to impress someone, you can read their rags.
Read their rags. What do you mean by that?
It means subscribing to the magazines or publications that your clients or colleagues are interested in. It keeps you in the loop and gives you those conversation starters that are relevant to their world.
That's smart. It shows you're paying attention. But, not everything translates across cultures.
Oh, you're so right. It's crucial to clear customs and avoid those cultural blunders, especially in international settings.
Big time. A friend of mine once gave someone the thumbs up in, I think it was Greece. And it turns out that's a really offensive gesture there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a total disaster. So do your research.
Absolutely. And, sometimes understanding the lingo can even get you better service or a better price.
Really? Like how?
It's called Find Your Iggy Informer. It's about learning those industry-specific terms. Like, if you're talking to a house painter, using terms like prepping or cutting in shows them you kind of know what you're talking about, and they might be more likely to give you a better deal.
Ah, it's like proving you're in the know.
Exactly. It's the same with buying diamonds, Calling them stones instead of diamonds can sometimes get you a better price.
Interesting. Okay, so we've covered a lot about making connections and sounding smart. But how do you actually build deeper, more meaningful relationships?
Well, that's where we get into the why we're just alike phenomenon. It's all about creating that sense of similarity, that feeling of being on the same wavelength.
Because we tend to gravitate towards people who are like us, right?
Exactly. And one of the best ways to do that is through echoing.
Echoing, like an echo in a cave.
Kind of. But in this case, it's about using the other person's exact words instead of your own synonyms.
Okay, give me an example.
So if someone calls their boat she, you do the same. Or if they say they own a horse, you use that word too, even if you'd normally say have a horse.
So it's about mirroring their language.
Yep. And it can even extend to professions. Like if someone refers to their workplace as a firm, you do the same, even if you normally say office or company.
Interesting. It's like you're speaking their language, literally.
Exactly. It creates this subliminal feeling of being on the same page.
I see how that could be powerful. So we're mirroring their language. What else?
Well, there's also potent imaging. This is all about using analogies and metaphors that really resonate with the person you're talking to.
Okay, so how do you tailor those images?
Think about their interests. Like, if you know they love sports, you could use analogies from baseball or football to illustrate your point. It makes it more impactful because it speaks directly to their world.
So if they're a basketball fan, you wouldn't use a golf analogy.
Exactly. You'd use a slam dunk analogy.
I got it.
And then there's this idea of anatomically correct empathizers.
Now that's a mouthful. What does that even mean?
It's about paying attention to how people express themselves and then mirroring that. Like, do they tend to say, I see what you mean, or I hear you, or that feels right?
Ah, so you're matching their sensory language.
You got it. If they're using visual language, you respond with visual language. It makes them feel heard and understood.
It's all about building that connection.
Right. And then there's this really sneaky one called the premature we.
The premature we. That sounds interesting.
It is. So even with new acquaintances, maybe even a potential client or someone you're romantically interested in, you start using we naturally in your conversation.
Even if you've just met.
Yep. It subtly creates this feeling of like we're already a team or we share a common perspective.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to compliments. I'm always a bit awkward with those.
Me too, actually. But the author makes this great distinction between genuine praise and, that icky flattery that feels fake.
Yeah, nobody likes a brown noser.
Right. And one technique I love is no risk praise. Do it behind their back.
What's that all about? Praising someone behind their back.
You got it.
Yeah.
So you compliment someone to a third party, someone who's close to them.
So that it gets back to them.
Exactly. And when they hear it, it has so much more weight because it wasn't said directly to them.
It's like a stealth compliment.
Exactly. And you can also be a carrier pigeon kudos, pass on nice things you've heard other people say about someone.
I like that. It makes you the bearer of good tidings.
Right. And then there's accidental adulation.
Accidental adulation.
Yes,
Sounds sneaky.
It kind of is. You slip a compliment into a seemingly casual remark, almost like an afterthought.
Clever. So it's less in your face.
Exactly. And then there's the killer compliment.